My name is David Morgan, and I'm about to tell you how I discovered that my wife of 15 years wasn't just cheating on me. She was systematically stealing from our family business and planning to disappear with her lover using money I'd worked 20 years to build. This is the story of the ultimate betrayal and how I turned their own greed against them. I'm 44 years old, living in suburban Atlanta, Georgia. 20 years ago, I started Morgan Construction with nothing but a pickup truck, some basic tools, and a dream of building something for my family. Through hard work, honest dealing, and countless 12-hour days, I built it into a successful general contracting business with 18 employees, an annual revenue of about $3.2 million. dollars. My wife, Jessica, has been with me through it all. We met in college, got married right after graduation, and she supported me through the lean early years when I was working construction during the day and doing bookkeeping at night. When the business started growing, Jessica became our office manager, handling payroll, scheduling, and client communications. We have two kids, Ashley, who's 16, and Connor, who's 13. We live in a nice suburban neighborhood, drive reliable vehicles, and have been able to save for the kids' college funds and our retirement. We're not millionaires, but we've built a solid middle-class life through honest work. Jessica has always been the organized one in our family. She keeps meticulous records, manages our business finances, and handles most of the administrative work that allows me to focus on the construction side. Our employees respect her, our clients trust her, and I've always been grateful to have a partner who understood both the business and our family needs. But over the past year, I started noticing changes that would eventually reveal the most devastating betrayal of my life. The first sign something was wrong came in early 2023 when I noticed Jessica working longer hours and being more secretive about her work. She'd always been organized and efficient, usually finishing her administrative tasks by mid-afternoon. But suddenly she was staying at the office until 7 or 8 p.m., claiming she was updating our systems and improving our processes. When I offered to help or asked about what specifically she was working on, Jessica would deflect and say she was handling boring administrative stuff that wouldn't interest me. She started password protecting her computer, claiming it was for security purposes to protect client information. Jessica also began taking frequent phone calls in private, stepping outside or going to another room when certain calls came in. When I asked who was calling, she'd say it was suppliers, subcontractors, or clients dealing with routine business matters. But what really concerned me was our financial situation. Despite having our best year ever in terms of contracts and revenue, our business cash flow seemed tighter than usual. When I asked Jessica about it, she explained that we'd had some unexpected expenses, slower client payments, and equipment costs that had affected our working capital. Her explanation seemed reasonable, and I trusted her completely to manage our finances. Jessica had never given me reason to doubt her honesty or competence with money. That trust would prove to be my biggest mistake. By summer 2023, the financial issues were becoming harder to ignore. We were struggling to make payroll on time, despite having signed several large contracts that should have provided steady cash flow. When I checked our business bank account online, the balance was always lower than I expected based on the invoices I knew we'd sent out. Jessica explained that we were experiencing delays in client payments and that some of our major accounts were taking longer to process invoices due to their own bureaucratic procedures. She assured me that the money was coming in, just more slowly than usual. But there were other inconsistencies that troubled me. Jessica had new clothes, jewelry, and seemed to be spending money on personal items that didn't match our supposedly tight cash flow situation. When I asked about it, she said she'd been shopping sales and using money from her separate personal account that she'd built up over the years. I also noticed that Jessica was frequently unavailable during business hours. She'd leave the office for client meetings or supplier visits, but wouldn't provide specific details about who she was meeting with or what was being discussed. These absences became more frequent and lasted longer. Most concerning was a phone call I accidentally answered when Jessica stepped away from her desk. The caller asked for Jess and seemed surprised when I said Jessica wasn't available. When I offered to take a message, the caller quickly hung up. When I mentioned it to Jessica later, she claimed it was probably a wrong number or a telemarketer. By fall 2023, I decided I needed to understand our financial situation better. In October 2023, I began quietly reviewing our business finances more carefully. As the owner, I had access to all our bank accounts and financial records, but I'd always trusted Jessica to handle the day-to-day management and only reviewed monthly summaries. What I discovered when I looked at the detailed records was deeply troubling. There were numerous transfers from our business accounts to accounts I didn't recognize. When I traced these transfers, they were going to a business account for something called Morgan Business Solutions, a company I'd never heard of and certainly never authorized. There were also regular payments to vendors and contractors that didn't match the work we'd actually done. When I called some of these supposed vendors, several had no record of doing business with us, and others turned out to be companies that existed only on paper. Most shocking of all, I discovered that several of our largest client payments had been deposited into accounts that weren't our primary business accounts. The money was coming in, but it was being diverted to accounts that Jessica controlled exclusively. Jessica had been systematically stealing from our business for at least 18 months, possibly longer. As I continued investigating our finances, I discovered that Jessica's theft was far more sophisticated than simple embezzlement. She'd created an elaborate system of fake companies, diverted payments, and fraudulent expenses that had allowed her to steal over $400,000 from our business. But the financial theft was only part of the story. While researching the mysterious Morgan Business Solutions, I discovered that it was registered to an address I didn't recognize, a luxury apartment complex in Buckhead, an upscale area of Atlanta. The business registration listed Jessica as the owner, but it also included a co-owner named Kevin Richards. I'd never heard Jessica mention anyone named Kevin Richards. When I researched him online, I found that he was a business consultant who specialized in helping companies restructure their operations and optimize their financial processes. Further investigation revealed that Jessica had been meeting regularly with Kevin Richards for over a year, supposedly to discuss improving our business efficiency. But the apartment where their fake company was registered turned out to be where they were living together as a couple. Jessica wasn't just stealing my money. She was using it to fund a relationship with another man while planning to destroy the business I'd spent 20 years building. Working with a forensic accountant and a private investigator, I uncovered the full scope of Jessica's betrayal. She and Kevin Richards had been running a sophisticated scheme to drain money from Morgan Construction while building their own competing business. The plan was elegant in its cruelty. Jessica would gradually steal money from our business accounts while creating cash flow problems that would eventually force Morgan Construction into bankruptcy. During the business's decline, she and Kevin would contact our clients and employees, offering to continue their services through Morgan Business Solutions. They would essentially steal our entire client base and workforce while leaving me with the debts and legal obligations. Once Morgan Construction collapsed, Jessica would file for divorce, claiming that I was financially irresponsible and had run the business into the ground. They'd been executing this plan for at least 2 years, and they were probably months away from completing it successfully. But they had made one crucial mistake. They underestimated my willingness to fight for what I'd built. I decided to let Jessica and Kevin continue their scheme while secretly documenting everything and preparing my counterattack. For 2 months, I acted like nothing was wrong while building a comprehensive legal case against both of them. The opportunity for perfect justice came in January 2024 when Jessica announced that she needed to attend a business conference in Miami for a week. She claimed it was a training event for office managers in the construction industry and that the knowledge would help improve our business operations. I knew this was actually a vacation with Kevin, paid for with stolen money from our business. While Jessica was in Miami, I implemented my plan. Working with my lawyers and forensic accountants, I froze all business accounts, changed all passwords and access codes, and filed criminal charges for embezzlement and fraud against both Jessica and Kevin. I also filed for emergency divorce proceedings and sought restraining orders to prevent Jessica from accessing any business or personal accounts. Most importantly, I contacted all of our clients and employees to inform them about Jessica's theft and the fraud scheme. I provided them with evidence of the crimes and explained that Morgan Business Solutions was a fraudulent company built on stolen money. When Jessica and Kevin returned from their Miami vacation, they discovered that their entire scheme had collapsed and they were both facing serious criminal charges. Jessica returned from Miami on a Sunday evening, expecting to find everything normal. Instead, she found that her key no longer worked at our office. Her access to all business accounts had been revoked, and there was a notice that she was being served with divorce papers and criminal charges. She called me immediately, screaming and demanding to know what was happening. I told her to meet me at our lawyer's office the next morning if she wanted to discuss the situation. At that meeting, with both our lawyers present, I laid out all the evidence of her theft and fraud. The forensic accounting showed exactly how much money she'd stolen, when she'd taken it, and where it had gone. We had emails and documents proving her scheme with Kevin to destroy our business and steal our clients. Jessica's initial response was to deny everything and claim that I was framing her because I suspected her of having an affair. But when faced with bank records, emails, and documented evidence of the fake companies and diverted payments, her story collapsed. Finally, Jessica admitted to the affair with Kevin, but claimed that the financial irregularities were just business restructuring that would have benefited both of us in the long run. She tried to argue that she'd been working to improve our company's profitability and that I was misunderstanding legitimate business transactions. That explanation fell apart when we showed her the emails where she and Kevin explicitly discussed destroying Morgan Construction and leaving me with nothing but debt. Within 2 weeks of Jessica's return from Miami, both she and Kevin Richards were arrested on multiple charges including embezzlement, fraud, conspiracy, and identity theft. The evidence was overwhelming. Over $400,000 stolen from our business, fake companies created to hide the theft, and documented plans to destroy Morgan Construction. Kevin Richards turned out to have a history of similar schemes. He'd been involved in at least 3 previous cases where he'd helped business partners or spouses steal money and destroy companies. In each case, he disappeared when things got complicated, leaving his accomplices to face the legal consequences alone. But this time, we'd frozen his assets before he could escape, and the evidence against both of them was too strong to deny. Jessica pled guilty to felony embezzlement and fraud charges in exchange for a reduced sentence in agreement to pay full restitution. She received 3 years in prison and was ordered to repay the stolen money plus interest and legal fees. Kevin Richards fought the charges initially, but eventually pled guilty when faced with overwhelming evidence. He received 5 years in prison and was also ordered to pay restitution. Recovering from Jessica's betrayal required rebuilding both my business and my personal life from the ground up. The financial theft had seriously damaged Morgan Construction's cash flow and reputation, and several clients initially questioned whether they wanted to continue working with us given the scandal. However, most of our clients and employees stood by us once they understood the full scope of Jessica's deception. They realized that I'd been a victim of the fraud, not a participant, and that my quick action to expose the scheme had protected them from being victimized as well. The criminal prosecution helped recover about 60% of the stolen money. Jessica and Kevin were forced to liquidate their assets, including the luxury apartment and expensive items purchased with stolen funds. The remainder of the stolen money had been spent and couldn't be recovered, but the partial restitution was enough to stabilize the business's finances. More challenging was rebuilding trust with Ashley and Connor. They were devastated to learn that their mother had been living a double life and had tried to destroy their father's business. We all attended family counseling to help process the betrayal and develop healthy ways to move forward. The experience taught me valuable lessons about trust, oversight, and the importance of maintaining involvement in all aspects of a business, even when you trust your partners completely. I implemented new financial controls and oversight procedures that require multiple approvals for significant transactions and regular third-party audits of our accounts. No single person, regardless of their relationship to me, will ever again have exclusive control over Morgan Construction's finances. I also learned to pay attention to behavioral changes and trust my instincts when something seems wrong. Jessica's increased secrecy, defensive responses to questions, and unexplained lifestyle changes were all warning signs that I dismissed because I trusted her completely. The betrayal was devastating, but it also revealed strengths I didn't know I had. I was able to uncover a sophisticated fraud scheme, build a legal case, and protect my business and family from complete destruction. The experience made me more cautious, but also more confident in my ability to handle serious challenges. 3 years after Jessica's arrest, Morgan Construction is stronger than it's ever been. We've grown our client base, improved our processes, and built a reputation for integrity and reliability that has attracted new business. Ashley is now in college, studying business administration with plans to eventually join the family company. She's learned valuable lessons about trust and verification from watching how her mother's betrayal was discovered and handled. Connor is excelling in high school and has shown interest in the construction trades. He spends summers working with our crew and learning the business from the ground up, just like I did 20 years ago. I've started dating again, but with a much clearer understanding of the importance of transparency and shared values in relationships. Any serious relationship I enter will require complete financial honesty and mutual oversight of family resources. Jessica served her full 3-year sentence and was released in 2027. She now lives in another state, working in a low-wage job and making monthly restitution payments that will continue for years. Her conviction makes it nearly impossible for her to work in any position involving financial responsibility. Kevin Richards received additional charges in other states for similar fraud schemes and ended up serving 7 years in prison. His business consulting career is permanently destroyed, and he faces ongoing legal challenges from victims of his previous schemes. Neither of them succeeded in destroying Morgan Construction or stealing our clients. Instead, their actions strengthened our business relationships and demonstrated the importance of ethical behavior in building long-term success. The attempted theft cost them everything: their freedom, their reputations, and their financial futures, while ultimately making our business stronger and more successful. People often ask me how I missed the signs of Jessica's betrayal for so long. The answer is that skilled manipulators are experts at exploiting trust and creating plausible explanations for suspicious behavior. Jessica used our 20-year history together and her role as mother to our children to deflect suspicion and maintain access to business finances. She leveraged my trust in her competence and integrity to gain control over financial systems that should have required oversight. Every warning sign I noticed had a reasonable explanation that seemed to make sense in the context of our relationship and business needs. It was only when I started investigating systematically that the full scope of her deception became apparent. The key lesson I learned is that trust must be balanced with verification, especially when significant amounts of money are involved. Healthy business relationships require transparency, documentation, and mutual accountability, regardless of personal relationships or family connections. Jessica's betrayal was devastating, but it taught me that resilience, careful investigation, and decisive action can overcome even the most sophisticated deception. Sometimes the people closest to us are capable of extraordinary betrayal, but that doesn't mean we have to let them succeed. The business I spent 20 years building is now stronger and more successful than ever. My children learned valuable lessons about integrity and perseverance, and Jessica and Kevin learned that stealing from honest people has serious consequences. Sometimes justice isn't about revenge, it's about protecting what you've built and making sure that betrayers face appropriate consequences for their choices. That's how you handle discovering that your spouse and business partner has been systematically stealing from the company you built together. You document everything, seek appropriate legal remedy, and then rebuild stronger and wiser than before.